What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. Well, we just finished the Monday Night Football doubleheader. Josh Allen and Jayden Daniels shine. Joe Burrow, not too shabby in the L. And the Jags might as well just mail in the season. What a gutless effort up there in Buffalo. Washington wins on the road against the Bengals. Buffalo destroys the Jags. We had a fun night. Lot going on. Not a huge fan of these doubleheaders. Going to be real. Hate them, but not going to be negative. I think that's an easy one. We're going to be positive. Could be worse. It could be July, and there'd be nothing on television. So, listen, these are first world problems, complaining about two games going on at once. Luckily, we had one that became pretty entertaining in the Cincinnati-Washington game, and Josh Allen said, Sam Darnold, you got to pump on the brakes for that MVP because, hey, homie, it's my turn. Mahomes, Lamar, they've won a few combined. This is my year, guys, because the Bills look awesome. They've won the last two games by like 150 points. And it felt like ruined the two teams from South Florida. Or the Jags would be in North Florida, just the state of Florida. But we will dive into those games. A lot going on football-wise. We'll talk about some other stuff as well. But before we dive in to tonight's action, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast. If you want to go to a game, if you want to go to a concert, I got you covered. Because my friends at Game Time, best ticketing app in the world. Not even close. There is no close second. What do you want to do? You want to go to an NFL game? You want to go to a college game? The baseball playoffs are about to start. I don't even know who's in them. I know the Phillies are because I watched on Instagram that they won the NL East. If you want to go to one of those, you want to go to a concert, Taylor Swift, you name it. Obviously, comedy shows as well. My friends at Game Time, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Where should we start? I think we'll start with the rookie and the Washington Commanders, which are now 2-1. And their quarterback had an incredible night. You watch that game and you go, well, what can he not do? And the one thing we knew coming out of LSU is that he was a great deep ball thrower. He had Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. And he won the Heisman for a reason. No one last year in college football, you could argue in the NFL, threw a better deep ball. And that was on full display tonight. And that's been, I think, a point of contention for, Fall and different people that cover the team is like they weren't pushing the ball down the field. They even mentioned it tonight. Terry McLaurin, high character guy, wasn't going into the tank. He's like, listen, I'm a veteran. I make a lot of money. We're good. And he was fed tonight. And that pass that sealed the game in the back corner of the right end zone is the best throw so far of the NFL season. Or it's on par with Anthony Richardson's throw week one. The difficulty of that, the accuracy of that, staring down the gun barrel as a defender is coming full speed right at you, about to hit you in the chest. It couldn't be any more perfect. Like that's a video game level throw. And he hit McLaurin way earlier in the game, down the middle of the field for a huge gain. He was 21 or 23 today. It felt like 7-on-7 for him. The Bengals defense, which was clearly struggling, he destroyed them. And the one thing you see with Jayden, we know how good of an athlete he is. He slid. The guy finally slid. And he slid kind of on like, I would say, of all the plays that he's made so far this season, a pretty innocuous one. Not one you're going to remember. A 3 or 4 yard scramble. He hit that slide like he was, playing for the Washington Nationals, and the entire bench lit up. His offensive lineman lit up. Dan Quinn and that backwards hat. Colin Cowherd's pissed off at him. Huge smile. Because the only negative thing that I have to say about the guy is that he takes a lot of unneeded hits. The one thing the good quarterbacks do is they slide. And Jayden Daniels isn't exactly, 250 pounds of muscle. So any hit that he can avoid when he's scrambling, because that is a huge, huge strength of his. You saw he had a rushing touchdown tonight because on that zone read with Brian Robinson, who is a really good player, it's like Cliff Kingsbury was awesome tonight. He's clearly been really good for Jayden. And I don't even know. I'm kind of speechless. I remember watching him early on in Arizona State, and honestly, my first reaction was, I don't see it. I remember watching him early on at LSU, and I thought, I don't see it. And then last year, you really couldn't debate. I mean, they had one of the most historical, potent offenses in the history of college football. And his deep ball throwing, like we've talked about, was excellent. Clearly, that is translated. You knew his athleticism would translate, but tonight being calm within the pocket, tonight being calm as a scramble guy, moving from your spot, but keeping your eyes down the field is something we hear a lot with quarterback play. Is when the eyes drop, you're in trouble. And the best athletes at quarterback scramble and keep their eyes up. You watch Josh Allen, he's the best at that. He's moving left, he's moving right, eyes are up, looking down the field. Who's open? Boom, delivers a strike. And you saw Jayden do that over and over tonight. So, listen, Cliff's never been my favorite from an offensive philosophical standpoint, but in terms of working with a quarterback like this, listen, I don't vibe with their short yardage running game. It's not my style. To have the quarterback in the gun, to have the running back right next to him. I get it, it's going to work sometimes, but that's not what I grew up on. It's not what I've been around in my professional career. But I won't dispute, it helped Kyler Murray get going. And it clearly, Jayden is very comfortable in this offense. Listen, that touchdown they threw to the offensive lineman, hat tip to Cliff Kingsbury, but that is a massive win for Washington. To go on the road with a rookie quarterback, with a team that is 0-2, fighting for their lives. Now, listen, the 17-game season, short sample size, of teams that can make the playoffs at 0-2. I don't need a long sample size. At 0-3, you are in a major fucking hole. Let's call a spade a spade. And tonight, Washington, I don't want to say put a nail in their coffin, but we might look back, really derailed their season. And it started and ended with Jayden Daniels, who they showed Adam Peters sitting next to the owner. That's a moment where the rookie quarterbacks, let's face it, Caleb's been up and down. Bo Nix first 2 weeks were terrible. He was good at Tampa. That was star quarterback in the making on an individual game basis. The physical attributes, the throws, obviously the touchdown pass at the end of the game. That was freaking awesome to watch. And for the Bengals, it's you lose week 1, 16-10. Your offense scores 10 points against the Patriots that are probably going to end up winning 3 or 4 games. The second week, you go toe-to-toe with the champs. You easily could have won that game. Let's face it, you kind of choked the game away. Then this game, Joe Burrow is awesome. Throws for well over 300 yards, hitting Jamar Chase left and right for multiple touchdowns, is playing a Joe Burrow level game. And your defense gives up 38 points. To me, it's what do we need to? Well, our offense was bad one game. Our defense was bad another game. The other game, we just couldn't close it out. It's one thing when you just have a major question mark at a specific position or with a specific unit. Right now, in different games, everything has gone wrong. So I don't really know where they go from here. I think on the bright side is Chase got going. T. Higgins is back. Their offense looks fine. Even if you remove that last touchdown, which is a little hollow, if you're the Commanders, you're just kind of playing a little prevent defense. But they had 26 points. You could give them 27 because they went for 2 trying to tie the game. When you have 26, 27 points and you're on pace to lose the game by double digit, like you got issues on defense. And Lou Amaruno has been widely considered one of the better defensive coordinators. But sometimes on defense, obviously the X's and O's really matter. You're seeing that with Brian Flores and Steve Spagnuolo. But defense is also about the Jimmies and the Joes. You can out scheme people offensively with a random talent. It's difficult to do that on defense. If your corners and your safeties can't cover, like what are you supposed to do? What defense are you supposed to cover or call? And you saw tonight guys just getting wide open, especially in key spots. Zach Ertz was one of the last players I scouted when I worked in the NFL. That was a long time ago. He's pretty old. And he was shredding them tonight. And when you can't cover him, let alone McLaurin, let alone, is that Christian? Oh, no, that's Luke McCaffrey. So they got worked. And I don't know what you do. You try to circle the wagons, but like you're not screaming at Burrow in the offense. And the defense over the last couple of weeks had played well. I don't know if they ran out of gas, but 0-3. I think we can borderline write Cincy off as a playoff team. It's going to be very, very difficult to make it. Now, luckily for them, the Ravens are a little behind the 8 ball at 1-2. The Browns suck. But we'll see how the rest of the AFC plays out because Houston's going to be good. Indy's a question mark. So maybe you can get to 9-8 and get that 7 seed, but I don't know. The Bengals, you just never know what you're going to get week to week. So fantastic win by the Commanders. Bills, Jags. Let me say this. Nothing after halftime mattered. Not a thing. The Bills stepped on their throat and ended their season. No one can take the Jags seriously again. That was the type performance in the first half by Josh Allen, who I've been saying for a long time is the second best quarterback in the NFL. I think it's fair to say, given Mahomes has had some bad interceptions this year, no one has played better than Josh Allen this season at quarterback. Sam Darnold's a cute story, and he's played well. Josh Allen's on a different level. Like right now, that is the best player in the National Football League. Mahomes, still the guy you don't bet against in the playoffs. Mahomes clearly has the best resume, but currently, through 3 weeks, is that cat in Buffalo. 4 touchdowns first half. Said Doug Pederson, Trent Baalke, you guys can probably clean out your offices. And I think we saw in that game 2 max players, 2 guys making hundreds of millions of dollars. One guy is dramatically underpaid, and there is no amount of money the Bills could pay him where they wouldn't feel good about it because their franchise can't function without that human being. And their GM and obviously their coach, they've done a good job because everyone's like, what are they going to do without Diggs? I don't know. Khalil Shakir, one of the better slot wide receivers in the league. Cook has changed their offense since last year. Kincaid, the tight end, really good player. Keon Coleman, first-round pick, touchdown. Like, they're going to be okay. And I would say over the last 2 weeks, no team in the NFL has played better. But that's a Super Bowl contender right there, which we knew. A lot of people questioned coming into the season thinking they would take a step back. When you have that guy playing quarterback and an organization that has now proven they know what you're doing, like that's what you get. And that was a massacre. It really was. And I think what we found out, so congrats to the Bills who have just dominated the competition these last 2 weeks. Do you know what Trevor Lawrence is? He's a high character Deshaun Watson. As just someone that likes watching football on my couch, that would be doing it whether I did this for a living or not, they are terrible watches. They are terrible for the consumer. You just sit there and watch and you go, this is awful. How am I watching this? What is going on? And I think we can officially say Trevor Lawrence is one of the most overhyped players in the history of the league. The hype that followed him coming into the NFL was insane. And through 3 years and 3 games, it has been beyond underwhelming. But the craziest thing is, and this is what bad organizations do in the NBA gives out max contracts like a home in a cul-de-sac gives out candy on Halloween night. Some guys are worth it. Jokic, Luka, Curry, LeBron. And then there are a ton of guys that you go, we just won 30 games and didn't sniff the playoffs. It's like, yeah, you gave that guy $240 million. I could have told you that was a terrible contract. The Jags giving him $200 million after last season when he was going into year 4. It's not like, well, he's going to be a free agent. You got a franchise. He wasn't even close to his 5th-year option. He still had another year to get there. Is one of the most insane things I've ever seen when it comes to the economics of the NFL when you're talking that type of money. I thought both quarterback contracts this summer were pretty embarrassing for the franchises. But there's a reason the Dolphins don't really win anything ever. And there's definitely a reason the Jags, since Shad Khan has owned the team, constantly suck. Because giving this guy that much money, who, yeah, he's got some talent, but there was a moment in the second half, he had a couple drives, and Orlovsky was like, he's really just kind of letting it rip and play. Well, yeah, he's down 34-3. Nothing matters. He can just play free. But in the heat of the moment, when they got down really quick, like 13-0, you felt a little pressure, and the balls are just flying all over the map. The interception he throws to Damar Hamlin, which, dude, dies on a field, 2 years later is picking off a $200 million quarterback starting for a Super Bowl contender. Incredible story. Was an atrocious throw. The dude is wide open, running down the middle of the field, cutting across the field, drive the ball into him. Instead, he tries to layer a throw, and the ball airmails the wide receiver, tips and overthrows, hits Hamlin in the breadbasket. Easiest interception he's probably ever had, dating back to Pee Wee football. And listen, seems like a nice guy, never gets in trouble, but this is him and Deshaun Watson made a combined $430 million, and you can't win with either of them. You cannot. We all watch enough football. We saw 3 quarterbacks out of the 4 tonight, and you're like, that's a really good player. Josh Allen, transcendent talent. Jayden Daniels, oozing with ability. Joe Burrow is that's the guy, that's the Joe Burrow that I remember. That's that guy tonight. And then there's Trevor Lawrence, who, people have been pushing. He's got talent. He's got ability. It's okay, let's just see it. I'm not asking for 4 touchdowns a game. I'm just asking, can I just watch a couple series when the game is not out of hand and have him make throws that matter? It's not like he's throwing to me and you. They have good offensive pieces, and he just looks awful. He just looks terrible. There's not even a discussion to be had about Deshaun Watson anymore. Awful guy, beyond question marks off the field. Trevor Lawrence, good guy. People like him. Below average player. And currently right now, he doesn't make more money than Deshaun because he got more guaranteed, but the second most overpaid player in the NFL. I mean, that contract currently looks like a disaster. And I said this a little while ago that, hey, Doug Pederson and Trent Baalke are done. Doug's a good guy. I'm not rooting for him to get fired, but let's call what it is. I mean, you can't get your ass kicked and lose the games in which they've been losing when your owner said what he said coming into the season and have a chance. And there's no way you're letting Trent Baalke pick another coach. It's it's over. It's over and done with there. But it's they'll go after Belichick. Well, if you're Belichick, if you do, listen, who knows how many opportunities he's going to have this offseason. What if he thinks this guy's terrible? And it's not just cut him this offseason. They just gave him $200 million guaranteed. You're kind of stuck with him. And even though these owners now are willing to cut guys with these, it ruins your cap or puts huge limitations on you in the short term. So you're kind of, upstream without a paddle, and this guy's sitting on your boat, and you just got to figure it out. So you could argue, hey, these guys are going to get fired. Kind of an intriguing job because they have a quarterback. But based on what we've seen through 3 games, yeah, they have a quarterback who's making a ton of money that isn't very good. So you could almost say that's a detriment to the job. And it was on full display tonight. We had 2 games going with 2 quarterbacks on max salaries, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. Awesome players. Jayden Daniels, the second pick in the draft. You're like, holy moly, this kid's good. And then there's Trevor Lawrence, who my mom, you, my fiance, my neighbor, anyone that's watching all has the same take. Like, is this guy supposed to be good? Like, we've all watched enough football at this point, even just based on this season, to know, like, hey, show me something. And he shows you nothing. So the drives in the third quarter, down 34-3 coming out of halftime, don't matter one iota to me. I would put negative stock in that. It's irrelevant in terms of judging, like, oh, there's something there. Like, bullshit. There were some big spots in the first half, and he melted. Like putting ice outside in Scottsdale when it's 110 degrees. The cube never has a chance. Melts like that. And that's what Trevor Lawrence and that offense and just the Doug Pederson, Trent Baalke era felt like. Because this thing's a wrap. I love touchdowns. Tutties, taken to the house, in for 6. I call them tugs. Whenever you call a touchdown, one thing's for sure. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. On the ground, in the air, special teams or defense, we do not care how they score them. We want to bet on touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook is delivering. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something as simple like picking a player to score a touchdown or how many touchdowns will be in a game. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Ready to do a touchdown dance on your own? New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code JOHN, J-O-H-N. That's code JOHN. New customers get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Okay, let's dive into some quarterback play around the NFL. Today on the old Stairmaster, I watched a couple games. I watched them yesterday on Sunday, but it's hard when you got 8 games going at once to really dial in. And the Vikings game was really such a blowout. They went back-to-back wins over the 49ers and the Texans. Like, I'm sorry, there can't be 2 better back-to-back wins so far this season than those 2. And they destroyed Houston. And, I mean, they kind of worked the Niners as well. And the talk of the town is Sam Darnold, who leads the league in touchdown passes, who's been fantastic. Who is, it's early, but is truly an MVP candidate. Throwing touchdowns left and right, looks really, really good. And I texted around some buddies in the league, and I think consistent theme that came back, and we all agree, he plays for a well-run, high-level coaching team, right? Kevin O'Connell, one of the better offensive coaches in the league, clearly. Brian Flores is a dominant defensive coordinator. It is a good situation. But we can't really argue that confidence is a powerful tool. And having people that believe in you, having the right people that believe in you is a game changer in life. I get asked all the time, want to start a podcast, want to do football. Do you have any advice? I say, yeah, just get Coward, Bill Simmons, or Portnoy behind you. Or be 2 Hall of Famers, one guy dating Taylor Swift. Or else you got no shot. And when you do have the right people who believe in you and are behind you, then it's on you to take advantage of it. And listen, Sam Darnold is 6'3.5". He's 220 pounds. He is a solid, I wouldn't call him a great athlete, but he's definitely average to above for NFL standards. And the knock has always been he's been really erratic. And you just look back, it's like, played for fucking Adam Gase and Matt Rule, who I think Matt Rule is a good college coach, but he was kind of an embarrassment in the NFL. And Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers changed him, and Kevin O'Connell has taken him to another level. And right now, the Vikings look fantastic. They look real. Like, I don't think this is a fluke. They're excellent on defense. Their quarterback is not only playing like under control, he's an explosive player. Like, this guy has a big, explosive arm. And they got weapons. And they got a good running back. And they got a star left tackle. Like, This is a real team. Now, I wouldn't just chalk them up in the Super Bowl for the NFC, but I don't see how. Obviously, Darnold, who had a little bit of a knee scare with JJ out, their backup quarterback situation, if he were to go down, I think would be obviously problematic. But let's face it, Cousins is a good player, right? He's made a ton of money in this league. He's been to Pro Bowls. Like he's had an excellent career, especially given where he started. Sam Darnold is much more talented. And to me, their team is now more dynamic. Cousins, I would say, over the course of a season is going to be a more accurate player. But what do we talk all the time about? We saw it last night again. He can't ad-lib. So if you pressure him, he's DOA. Sam Darnold can move. Like that is a huge element to modern day offenses. It's why all these quarterbacks that are excelling in the NFL are all good to elite athletes. I mean, that's just a fact. And it doesn't mean that like we're never going to see the Peyton Mannings and the Tom Brady's again. But those guys, the type players that have come into the NFL over the last, 6-7 years, have all been athletic guys, have all been guys that you can run movement plays with. And if he's not going to turn the ball over and he's going to throw a ton of touchdowns, the Vikings this isn't a fluke. As a buddy in the league texted me today, like they're real. This is not smoke and mirrors. And the Sam Darnold trade, or not trade, but signing, in a weird way could get complicated for them because if the team wins 12 games and he's excellent and they win a playoff game, you're just going to let him walk? I know you drafted J.J. McCarthy. They told this to Coward yesterday. Like, it's not like they traded up 3 first-round picks to get this guy. Kind of fell in their lap, and which was good job by their GM, knowing the market, know where you can get the player. I think they traded up 1 spot, but I don't know. It's going to get complicated. It's a good problem to have. Speaking of a good problem to have, is the Steelers landed 2 quarterbacks who they're not paying any money. And I think they got lucky when Russell Wilson got hurt because I thought to begin with that Russell was never going to work in Pittsburgh. He's a dink and dunk quarterback who's kind of a weirdo. That is not Pittsburgh style. And Justin Fields has, at this point in time, there's just more to work with. And this is a player who the Steelers are 3-0. And obviously they're led by their defense, which, like the Chiefs, has been elite. I mean, they are dominating defensively. And that game, to me, was a coin flip game until Justin Herbert re-injured his foot. And based on the line this week, probably won't play. I thought halfway through that game, I'm like, this Chargers team's a playoff team. If Herbert's fully healthy and he plays 17 games. If he's in and out of the lineup, they got no shot. But that was a solid win by Pittsburgh. And their defense, as long as TJ Watt's on the field, is going to be top-notch all season long. And the question mark has been with them the last couple of years, like quarterback play. And they've just had guys that bring no juice. Like there's Kenny Pickett's got nothing. He's throwing 88-mile-an-hour fastballs. It's not like he's some big-time athlete. So you get Fields, who their first touchdown, little zone read, boom, walks right in the end zone. Didn't have a big rushing game. I think he only rushed for like 6 or 7 yards yesterday. But that's a huge element of his game. And it does feel like he's a little more under control throwing the ball. And maybe we talk about confidence. We talk about leadership. Like Kevin O'Connell looking at Sam Darnold, I believe in you. Mike Tomlin looking at Justin Fields, I believe in you, is just a little bit different than Matt Rule or Matt Eberflus telling you that. And I think it's showing. Now, can the Steelers win a Super Bowl with Justin Fields? Clearly, they're going to have to be a little more potent on offense in these bigger games in December and in January. But, like, this is why you start them, which, again, they weren't planning on. But because of the Russell Wilson calf injury, they got granted that ability. Like, if Justin Fields stays healthy, we're not seeing Russell Wilson this entire season, which is a whole nother conversation, like what happens to that guy's career. But this is not the time for it. And you got to give Justin Fields credit. You got to give Sam Darnold the credit. When you get these opportunities and you get with a good team, like everyone's like, oh, their receivers suck. Well, obviously George Pickens is really talented. This Calvin Austin looks pretty good to me. Freiermuth's good. They got a couple backs, and they don't need to score that many points. I mean, there are going to be games where they're going to have to score more than 18, 20 points, clearly. But I do think they will have that capability as the season goes on, as this quarterback gets more comfortable. Big explosive arm, can throw on the move. Throwing over the middle of the field is something they're going to have to become a little more comfortable with. He had a pick yesterday, but it was kind of tipped up in the air. Like, I'm a believer. And listen, you guys know where I stood on Pittsburgh. I was out. They've kind of wrote me back in because their style translates. It really does. I would say if I had to bet on one of the two teams, I think the Vikings I would feel a little more confident in because just their passing game's much more explosive and their defense has been equally as dominant. And their defensive coordinator, Flores, right there with Spags, is so far through 3 weeks best in the league. But the Steelers are real too, man. They're very comfortable. I think the Chiefs have proven this the last couple of years. Now, the swing vote with the Chiefs is they got Patrick Mahomes, you got Justin Fields. But like they got no problem being in games when it's 13-10 in the second half. Like they're comfortable in that environment. So props to the Steelers. Some other thoughts on quarterback play. I rewatched or just, independently on the Stairmaster, the Colts and the Bears game. And I had two big takeaways. Because yesterday with Colin, my take was like, God, Fields is all over the place. Obviously, he has some stuff to work on. He's missing some deep balls. He gets a little frenetic in the pocket. But he did make a lot of great throws in that game. They have no running game. I mean, they're asking him, I'm sorry, in a game that it's one thing being down 30-0 and you have to throw. At no point was this game ever bigger than like it was like 14-3. It's like, can we just take a deep breath here, run the ball a little bit? And they're just asking him to throw every single play. But he had some great passes to Rome. There's a difference in struggling and losing like Bryce Young was and going, I don't see anything there. That wasn't my takeaway from Caleb. To me, there is so much there to work with. You need to calm down a little bit. You can't ask him to do this much. Like, it's kind of crazy. But I think most of the reaction is like, oh, he sucks. He's terrible. He's over his head, the hype. And that was kind of my reaction, watching him on a 4-box situation. But when you really watch the game, I was more glass half full. The guy I was glass half empty on would be Anthony Richardson, who is a complete train wreck. I mean, making throws off platform, fading to his left, hitting bears in stride. You can't function with this at quarterback. It is not sustainable. And Steichen, they play the Steelers this week. They play the Steelers. That is a tough spot for AR because right now the balls are coming out of his hand and you have no clue where it's going to go. He had a couple big plays in that game against the Bears where you could tell he throttled off a little bit because he was afraid to overthrow the guy. And whether this guy's all out of whack or whether this is just what he is, you talk about earning your money if you're Shane Steichen. This is a project's project. Now, luckily, if you are going to have a project, you want a guy 6'4" that is that powerful, that fast, and with that big of an arm. But the accuracy issues, like to me, Caleb, when he's overthrowing some stuff, and then you see him make just a couple great throws, hit guys in stride, you're like, this guy can be accurate. He did throw a bad pick six, or not, it wasn't a pick six, the guy went out of bounds, but a pick on an out route, hold on the ball a little too long. That happens to young quarterbacks. When I watch Anthony Richardson, young quarterback, the accuracy isn't a concern. I mean, it's probably one of the biggest liabilities right now in the NFL. So the Colts clearly are going to have questions on defense. DeForest Buckner's not there. They played a pretty good game, all things being equal yesterday with their backs against the wall. But I think the quarterback, when you play better teams, I just don't see how you win if he's going to play like he has through the first 3 games. I mean, there was a play in the red zone where they rolled him out, and there was a guy open in the back of the end zone. The ball did get tipped, but you didn't have any faith when he was rolling out like, this is pretty risky. And the ball gets tipped and goes right into Edmonds' hands. Like, man, this guy, there's one thing to be a roller coaster, and there's another thing to be what Anthony Richardson is right now, to feel like a train wreck. And listen, I know you won the game if you're a Colts fan, but I think we all have to agree that this is pretty freaking ugly right now. And I was a believer. I wanted to believe. I mean, hell, I was tempted to like bet on them to win the division. And the preseason spooked me. And it's been way worse in the regular season. So if Shane Steichen can work his magic, he deserves an extension. If he can get this team in playoff contention come December and have this quarterback improve, it'll be like LaFleur with Malik Willis. I will tip my hat. I'm not sure it's possible. Can I tell you about my friends at Via? Via is known for their award-winning THC and THC-free gummies. Here's the thing. I can easily just go CBD only or a little THC. And the best part about Via is you can control what you like. If you want 100 milligrams with THC, easy to use. If you want no THC and just CBD, also very easy. They sent me these sleep gummies they call Dreams, and they have 5 milligrams of THC and 5 milligrams of CBD. I take a little before I go to bed, sleep like a baby. They also have a focus one, a relief one. The focus one actually works pretty good. I need to get up, grind out a little tape, read some stories on the NFL, use one of those, and I'm off and running. Via lets you control what you want in your product. Industry leader, over 500,000 people served, made in the USA. They have experience, top-notch customer support. Cannot recommend them enough. Sourced from the finest hemp for your peace of mind. Trust me, have you using this stuff? It's fantastic. If you're 21 or over, check out the link to Via in our description. Use the code JOHN to receive 15% off. And after your purchase, when they ask you where you heard about them from, please support the show and tell them we sent you. This fall, enhance your everyday with Via. Bo Nix, I watched that game back. Two things. Denver came to play. Denver showed up to kick ass and take. Their defense was flying around. I mean, they got up a couple scores before you could even blink. To me, the difference between Bo Nix and Caleb is they were asking him to get, and this is what we talked about coming into the season, snap the ball, get rid of the ball quick. And he did that a couple times, and he found himself in a rhythm. And this is the big question mark with Eberflus, who, when you're watching the Bears and they keep showing him and he's screwing up challenges or he's not challenging the ball, you just feel a guy. We talk about it with players all the time, gaining confidence, losing confidence. Eberflus looks like a guy that's swimming completely in over his head. That's why I think most people, if you're gambling on it, if you're a fan of it, you're like, I'm out on this guy. This is not going to work. Then you watch Bo Nix and you just feel the confidence in the quotes from Sean Payton. It's like, he's been there, done that. Like he's been around the block a few times, kind of knows what he's doing. Now, his offense, in terms of the verbiage, it's very, very complicated. But with time, you find a place like, hey, I got to cut this out. I need to make this a little easier for my guy. The best thing that can happen to a young quarterback, play solid defense, make plays on defense, turn the ball over, and run the ball, slow down the game. And the Broncos did that. I mean, they went into Tampa and completely punked them. Now, was Tampa feeling themselves at 2-0? Did they underestimate? I say this all the time because there are massive upsets in November and December every single year. These people are humans. Like when you're playing a 1-7 team and you are 6-2, it's hard to practice the same way as when you're 6-2 and you're playing another 6-2 team on Monday night or Sunday night football. When you're playing that morning game, you're like, this team stinks. Like, I do get, and I understand coaches harp on this, take it seriously, work hard. It's hard for players when they, remember Belichick over decades when they would play just horrendous teams and he'd be like the peak of the dynasty and he'd be like, I know this team's 0-10, but their special teams is one of the best units I've ever seen. And he would go on some long diatribe for like 10 minutes. You'd be like, he is trying to psych himself in to this team being a real opponent because he has to communicate with his own team. And that's hard. That is a difficult proposition. And it felt like Tampa just thought, I would guess their practice was pretty hit or miss. Their focus was pretty hit or miss. And they showed up thinking they could win the game. And all of a sudden, it's like a Mike Tyson shot across the chin, and you're down. But Bo Nix getting rid of the ball quick. One thing that's pretty evident is he's a pretty good athlete. He made some fantastic plays with his legs. He had an early touchdown. He had another great scramble. He looked really, really good. And I think they just got him calm. Where you watch Caleb, what's weird about the Bears, and Colin and I talked about this on Sunday night, is like they start really slow. So whatever their scripted plays are, that is something you harp on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You feel pretty confident on how the game is going to open up. You practice those plays over and over. You go over it as the offensive coordinator. Very rocky early. There's no rhythm to it. Like, honestly, that game, the score looks a lot closer. They scored a couple late touchdowns. The score doesn't indicate how poorly they played on offense. Part of it was just kind of Caleb freelancing, which is part of the problem. It's hard to freelance in the NFL because even if you go, oh, the Colts suck on defense, their defenders, when they have angles on you and you're doing 360s in the backfield, will catch you. And if they don't catch you, they will force you back into more help. And it will just turn into these disasters. It's why we talk about all the time with quarterback play, get rid of the ball. Shedeur Sanders, really big-time talent. And I would put a lot, like their offense, when you're watching it, you're like, I think Pat Shurmur is one of the biggest scam artists going in Power 5 football or the NFL. His offense is a joke. It's like you can't block, and you are asking your offensive line on 4 and 5 wides every single series. Like what in tight games when you're down. And Shedeur just had to pull plays out of his you-know-what. Well, in college, you can pull that off. Caleb was able to pull that off the last couple of years. Terrible offensive line. Because most of the defenders who are chasing you around are not going to be playing on Sundays. So like Shedeur made just remarkable plays. It's harder to do that in the NFL. Because even some random backup is still like a 4th-round pick. It's still a guy that might play in the NFL for 5 or 6 years. So you're seeing Caleb do all this stuff, and you're like, bro, you either, if it's not there, you got to throw it away. You have to balance some of the hero ball that works in college, that in football, it's much more, or in the pros, on rhythm and timing. That's the only way an offense can operate. And that's where you watch Bo Nix, the first game, no rhythm and timing against Seattle. Steelers overwhelmed him early. As the game went on, it felt like he settled in. And this game felt much closer to what we saw during the preseason. Couple steps, get rid of the ball. Couple steps, your first option's out there, look, get rid of the ball. And that's how you can be successful in the NFL. Because when you are going back there and no one's open, you're like, shit, I'm just going to do a 360. I'm going to scramble to the left. And then if something's not open, I'll scramble back to the right. That can lead to crazy interceptions. That can lead to crazy sacks. That can just lead to problems. And this gets back to avoid some of these crazy 2nd and 3rd and long, you have to function in the run game. You have to have, I would say, productive plays on 1st and 10 because it makes it easier on everybody. And the Bears are like, I don't know, like an NFL blitz team. They just want to pass the ball nonstop. Unless I'm pro the pass. But when you're asking a rookie quarterback to pass the ball 50 times in a game where you are not down 3 or 4 scores, you're asking for problems. And you got to find a way to get an early lead. That's what the Broncos did. That's why they dominated that game. Get an early lead, have your defense settle in, and everyone can take a deep breath. When you find yourself behind the 8 ball, and some of these coaches, it can be like 14-6 or 9-0. And they start calling plays like they're down 21-3 in the 3rd quarter. It's like, guys, it's the 2nd quarter. You're down 9 points. Can we just run the plays that we talked about on Wednesday and Thursday that have a chance to just gain 6 yards? Like, we don't need 30 or 40 yards. And I think sometimes that's a huge difference you just see between coordinators. Their inability to, like, stick with the run. their inability to just run basic plays. It's my issue with Pat Shurmur. I mean, I'm sitting there, I'm rooting for Dion, and I'm going, Pat, every play does not have to be obviously the Hail Mary play, but on the previous series, it's like just run a slant route. Just run a quick screen. Make it a little easy on your offensive lineman. Make it so Shedeur is not running for his life. And some of these coaches like pass, 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 go deep, go deep, go deep, go deep, which is what we all want to do in Madden. It's not realistic in Power 5 football or the NFL. And in the NFL, the difference of Power 5, if you have an elite talent at quarterback, he can run around and make shit happen. And Shedeur did. And Caleb used to do that in college, where in the pros, it can unravel on you fast. Anthony Richardson's doing it right now. And then just throwing the ball to the other team. It's why when they had control of that game, what were they doing? They were handing the ball off and getting productive plays to Jonathan Taylor. That's how they took the lead. Because it just settles everyone in. And what has Andy Reid done these last couple of years as his passing game has been hit or miss? He's ran the football. Like, how do the Ravens have a lot of success over the years? They run the ball down your throat. And that's why I have a lot of respect for the running back position coming back into vogue. Because we've talked forever, the tight end is the quarterback's best friend. I'd argue the running game is the quarterback's best friend. It makes it easier on everyone, especially the offensive line. Because a lot of offensive linemen are going to struggle in pass pro. If you ask them to pass protect 40, 45 times a game. But there are a lot of O-linemen who can be average to above average in the run game, who are liabilities in the pass game. But you can play, function, and win with them if your running game is successful. And you can say, oh, they have no running game. A lot of these coaches will not stick with it. They just will not. They will be so quick to pivot away from it because, like, oh, we got stuffed once. Well, just stick with it. That's how you lean on a defense, tire them out. And the teams that are willing to do that, I think just have a better chance to be successful when your passing game, and it's like this all over the league, is out of whack and not really functioning. And your offensive linemen, probably most teams have multiple guys out of their 5 who are liabilities in the pass game. I understand, like the Cowboys, you're down 28-6. You have no choice. You have to pass. But if you're down like 7-3 or 10-3 or 14-6, and there's 2 quarters and 5 minutes left in the first half, it's like, guys, we got some time. Like, why are we rushing to try to gain a comeback in one play? Let's take a deep breath. Let's just sustain a drive. Just settle everyone down. And I think a lot of offensive coordinators, which, listen, most of us, if we're just playing video games or screaming at the TV, we all like to pass. But I think some of these guys are becoming so obsessed that it's leading to this erratic quarterback play when the offensive linemen are completely overwhelmed.